Good evening. Coming to you live from Indianapolis, Indiana. It helps when you turn the speaker on. My name's Chappy. It's Thursday night, and we're going to talk about some running backs. Guys, I got a bunch of stuff to go over tonight, so I'm really excited to share this with you guys. Draft season's coming up. A lot of drafts coming up in this next week for me, so I'm working diligently to become as prepared as I can. I'm going to cut through a lot of the fat tonight, and because I'll tell you why. Because I have about 70 running backs that I have on my board here, and I think damn near every one of them deserves at least some sort of consideration when you're preparing for your draft. Okay? So, again, as I said last time, well, first off, let me take a step back. Chaps Fantasy Chat. Thursday nights, I talk about football. I'm here on the Lenny Mullick Fantasy Sports Network. Andrea, thanks for joining. I'm here on every Tuesdays talking about baseball. I love baseball. That's my first love. But you know what? I've got a good bit of passion for this as well. And, it's funny. I reflect on myself more as I get older. And, I remember growing up and watching my dad. My dad was a pretty a well-known baseball coach in the area. He coached the high school baseball team that I played for. But I remember being like knee-high, right? And I remember my dad would sit there. It'd be like, the middle of summer. He'd be making lists, and what he'd be doing is he coached, right? So he would be making his two deeps, like who he thought was going to be on his teams. So I wondered for years and years and years. I've always loved to make these lists and really think about breaking down like why player one is better than player two, and putting that in an order. Which is why I love draft time, right? So this is fun for me. I hope it shows in what I'm doing, but we've got some really interesting things to talk about. Again, the way I break it down, I put two lists. One list I make is the industry standard. The second list is my opinion of that industry standard, right? So it's a fine balance. It's a balance between draft value, because 80%, 90% of the people that you're going to draft against are going to be drafting straight out of whether it be a website or a magazine. Very few people will have their own list, and if they do, they'll be quite shoddy. If you sit there and you put them side by side, you'll be able to tell draft value. And okay, so say you really like a Chris Carson this year. He's currently going in a 5th round moniker. You might have him drafted higher in your pecking order than that, but then you can look and see, okay, am I reaching for him? If you look on the right-hand side and you see the industry standard, you could say, oh, it's too early to draft him. Even if I draft him around early, I'm still reaching here. So that's the importance of making two different lists, okay? I really stress that. It's not hard to do. But again, tonight, I'm going to give you my list of players. We're going to tie in the ever so important and ever so under-discussed offensive line when it comes to the running back position. So let's get right to it, right, guys? So, our tier one in running backs, I do think it is important to have your offensive line taking into account. Now, it's not everything. I don't base everything off of my offensive line, but it is important to take note, okay? And when you're talking about two different players, maybe one of them gets a bump because the offensive line's projected as better, right? The offensive line projections are important, but again, it's just some analyst's opinion of an offensive line. So what I did going into this show was I wanted to get a good idea about the variety of projections of these offensive lines. So I went to 3 different sites, and I got their 1 through 32, and I started noticing some things, okay? I got Yahoo's, I got Fantasy Pros, and I got Sporting News. As I go down through here, some of the things are fairly consistent, weirdly consistent, honestly. And then there's other things that are complete anomalies. So what am I talking about? For instance, the Atlanta Falcons. The Atlanta Falcons are rated 13th in Yahoo on the offensive line. They're rated 16th in Sporting News. They're rated second in Fantasy Pros, right? So what the hell's that all about? What's going on there? Again, it's a lot of opinion. But the thing about the Falcons that I like is the fact that they went and they spent real draft capital. They spent 2 first-round picks on an offensive tackle and an offensive guard. So that automatically makes them better. Now, we'll talk about, as we go down through, first off, can you guys hear me? Can we get a sound check? I'm not seeing any movement on the podcaster page, so I know there's been difficulties lately, but I often talk to myself, often, but I don't do it out of hobby. Anyway, let me know you can hear me if you can, please. So anyway, the Falcons are one of these teams where I can understand the bump in projection up to 2 by Fantasy Pros, and I'll take that into account. So when they average out, and my averaging, they're around the 10th overall selection, I tend to give them a little bit of a bump because of those 2 first-round picks, okay? So that's what I'm talking about. And I won't bore you with the offensive line talk because that's not what we're really all here for. We're here to hear about the bread and butter, if you will, the running back position, the most important position. Real quick before I get into these guys, I do want to talk about philosophy, right? The running back position. I said I had 70 running backs. That doesn't mean that you can go out and skimp on running back. You're not going to be happy if you end up with LaShawn McCoy and Latavius Murray as your starting running backs. There's true value at the top, and you need to spend your draft capital accordingly. My personal theory is I just draft running backs, and I fill the rest of the team in as it goes. Okay? So that's just how I feel about it. Hopefully, as we go through this, you guys can understand I'm not shitting. I really do feel like if you can get as many running backs as you can in your stable, you can supplement that later on in the draft with good quality, talented players. That's my whole point, okay? So let's jump into these guys. Again, I break it down into tiers. I actually will go at a later date and break these down into further tiers. But as for now, what I'll do is first tier, second tier, third tier. So basically running back 1, running back 2, running back 3. So if you're in a 12-team league, the top 12 running backs, the second 12 running backs, right? So that makes sense doing it that way to me, because that helps when you're drafting. You want to have as many higher up on this list. You want to ideally have 2 starting first tier running backs. That's what we're all shooting for, right? It's hard to do, but you can do that if you hit the right guys on the second tier. Let's talk about them, okay? So, Saquon Barkley, he's currently going 1.1. He's your, unanimous first overall pick. I like Barkley because of Daniel Jones. I think that Daniel Jones is going to give him some momentum and some freedom that he didn't have last year when they were, really keying on him. I think Jones is going to be able to open some things up. So Saquon Barkley last year had 1,307 yards, 11 touchdowns. He had 91 receptions, guys, and 121 targets. He had 721 receiving yards and another 4 touchdowns. So the only thing that you could kind of knock on with Saquon is one, they lost the ultimate honesty guy in Odell Beckham, crazy as he was. But the other thing is the offensive line, right? That's what we talked about, Last year, their average was 17. So I don't read a whole lot into this because it's not like they were any better last year, right? So, Saquon is one of those special backs that I think the offensive line isn't going to matter much. The reason it's interesting is Christian McCaffrey at 2. He and Kamara, both, and there might be a really good argument here. Both of their offensive lines are better. Okay. New Orleans is ranked 5th, average-wise, and Carolina is ranked 10th. So both of those in the upper third in the league. Last year, McCaffrey, again, he was 1-2 at this point. He is, that is flipped. Interesting thing, when you make your list early and then you change it, you get to see trends and you get to see how things move and shake out. Alvin Kamara has actually jumped Christian McCaffrey into the number 2 slot right now, whereas last week it wasn't the case. So let's talk about Kamara then. 883 yards last year, 14 touchdowns. He had 81 receptions and 105 targets. He had 709 yards receiving and 4 additional receiving touchdowns. Alvin Kamara lost Mark Ingram, but gained Latavius Murray. So that tells me they're probably planning on using him a little bit more as a feature back. So that's good news for Kamara owners. I think that if you get a chance to pick number 2, that will probably be my lean at this point. Number 3, McCaffrey had 1,098 yards last year rushing, 7 touchdowns. He had 107 receptions, 124 targets, and 867 receiving yards for 6 extra touchdowns. Again, his offensive line is the 10th best average-wise, according to my metrics. And he is currently being drafted at 1.3. It's funny. Like I said, why I give you guys my list is because it's so freaking fluid. And I feel like at this point, it's a good time to bring in. He is not yet on my list. He is further down on my list. But it sounds like Zeke Elliott will be moving up this list quickly, right? I had bumped him well down to at the end of RB1 territory. But with this news of Dallas putting out an extra offer, I think that's a positive, and it shows that they're working in the right direction. So I'll get to him in a little bit, but Zeke Elliott might well be my 4th back this time tomorrow. So let's talk about where we're at now, okay? According to my listings, I have Le'Veon Bell 4th. And I have Le'Veon Bell 4th because I really do feel like he feeds off of revenge, off of proving, off of being able to show how valuable he is. So although there's a pretty substantial downgrade in his offensive line, I'll give you Le'Veon in 2017 had 1,291 yards rushing, 9 TDs, 85 receptions, and 106 targets, another 655 yards and 2 touchdowns. The thing about Le'Veon Bell now is his offensive line is 24th and the best in the league. That's not good, guys. So it is a concern when you're talking about Le'Veon. Take off. Take off, eh, you hoser? Oh, hey, you know what? I'll tell you, I love Le'Veon. I do think, just like with Antonio Brown, I think that he is one of those guys who feeds off of being told he can't. So that's why I have him this high. I do believe, given his new teammates, they are going to want to see what he is capable of doing quickly. So I look for a lot of touches out of Le'Veon Bell. I think that's a good pick, Andrea. My 5th guy, and I love this guy, is David Johnson. Sorry, Le'Veon Bell is currently going at the 12th pick in the first round. So the last running back. No, the last pick of the first round, excuse me. I'm confusing myself. So at the end of round 1 is where Le'Veon Bell is going in a traditional 12-team draft. If you could get him in with the 12th pick, I'd say you're probably doing pretty well. He's probably going to outperform that, is my only point, okay? So, give me matchups. Who they playing, Andrea, and I'll tell you. So David Johnson, again, I bumped up purposefully, well, I'm tempted to bump up James Conner, who I have currently sitting at 6 because of the offensive line thing. But I still think that the pedigree of Le'Veon Bell and David Johnson warrant him being above Conner, okay? That's why I currently have Conner at 6. Sorry, I can't count. Yeah, 6, and David Johnson at 5th. David Johnson is going pick 10 overall, first round, right? So the thing about David Johnson is offensive game plan. I mean, that's the biggest thing. The fact that David Johnson suddenly has a quarterback who's another running back on the field. It certainly frees some things up. So I love David Johnson. I think that he is a steal. If you can get him, he is actually the last elite running back. Last year, he did not have the greatest numbers, but you have to take into account this is a huge difference in play calling. This is a significant upgrade in the ability of the coaching staff to feed these guys the ball. David Johnson, mind you, the Cardinals' offensive line doesn't rate out great, but they went and they got the Steelers' starting right tackle. Okay, so they've made some improvements to their line. I think it could be better than advertised. Given that and the fact that Murray's going to want to get rid of the ball quickly, I think it just plays into what David Johnson does well. I really like him, and I look for him to return to form of what he did 2 years ago. So, again, at 110, just like Le'Veon Bell at 112, I think both of those guys will return significant value, okay? He is my running back 5. My running back 6, who I love, everyone knows. I am a Steeler fan. James Conner. James Conner last year had 973 yards and 12 TDs. He surprisingly had 55 receptions in 71 targets and another 497 yards receiving with another touchdown. The average, again, so Andrew, I know you're here. So how I came up with this average, right, is I went in and I got Yahoo's, and the point of this is variability, right? I got Yahoo's offensive line rankings, I got Fantasy Pros offensive line rankings, and I got Sporting News offensive line rankings. And then I averaged them out, right? And I took the anomalies down so we can kind of talk about it as we go forward. Because it's kind of interesting, okay? So, the Steelers' offensive line currently rated 4.6 on this metric, okay, that I came up with. I think that, when you look at a guy like James Conner, if he stays healthy, he should be a fairly consistent bell cow in that offense. And I think when you're talking about running back 6, it's considerable value. It's so much considerable value that the next guy I have behind him on my running back listings is probably going to surprise you that I put Conner in front of him. Okay, 112, I think, again, is a good value. I think he returns value at the last pick in the first round. And again, it's 112 because these are averages, okay? So these are averages of every draft that's taking place. So yes, you could have two 1.12s. So I'll simplify it. That's the 12th pick of the first round, right? So again, James Conner, 6th running back. 7, Todd Gurley. Todd Gurley's healthy. Todd Gurley is feeling a little bit of pressure. He is a hell of a running back. I mean, one of them. You talk about talent alone. He's probably in the top 3 of this list anyway, if not the top, right? So last year, Todd Gurley started out gangbusters. Then he got hurt down the line, and he only ended up with 1,251 yards, only 17 touchdowns, only 59 receptions. 59 receptions, guys. That was a little surprising to me, that number. 81 targets, right? Again, he didn't play damn near the last month last year, and he got 81 targets. So a bigger part of the passing game than you would initially think, right? And he got another 4 touchdowns receiving. So 21 total touchdowns. Now, here's the thing. Their offensive line rated 14.3. I think, personally, so that's the second, third, right? That's literally middle of the pack, okay? I think they're just getting involved in a numbers crunch here. I think it's important to take note in the rating, but I think Todd Gurley did it with this group last year, right? So I'm confident in Todd Gurley's abilities with this line in front of him. I think those numbers are probably the floor for Todd Gurley. If you could get Todd Gurley in the second round with the 5th pick, I think that would be a pretty good value. Okay? Now, here's the best part of all this. Last week, Todd Gurley was going round 2, pick 4. His ADP actually has fallen, albeit just 1 point. I think it's a significant point when you're talking about this is a top 20 pick, right? So it's significant that he fell. That means that he's losing momentum. I think this is a sneaker pick. I think Todd Gurley's a sneaker pick, guys. Okay? So, sound. You lose my sound? Guys. So my point, I got distracted by Lenny typing because I always want to pay attention to the legend on the Legend Sports Network, right? You can't hear me, right, guys? Kevin, welcome. Lenny, welcome. Andrea, welcome. It's good to have your support. I really appreciate it. Kyle, what's up? So, Todd Gurley, I think, really provides value, and I think he's going to fall a little bit further because if you really think about it, Kyle, if you really think about it, he is risk reward. You're absolutely right. But he's healthy. Like I said, he's motivated. Okay? He's an elite talent. That's what it all comes down to with Gurley. But here's why I really like Gurley. And I'm guilty of this as well. Everybody's affinity for Dalvin Cook. Someone's going to reach on Dalvin Cook. Currently, Dalvin is also slipping, but I think that's going to change. He went from 2.6 to 2.7. So, you think these guys would be rising, but they're falling. I mean, it's crazy to me. So, anyway, Todd Gurley at 2.5, I think is an extreme. These guys will make or break you. If you want to get as many of these guys as you can, if you see Zeke Elliott fall, you should pick him up. If you see Todd Gurley fall, pick him up, right? The only one that I'll say I'm scared of is Mel Gordon. Okay? And I'm putting the horse in front of the buggy. I won't jump ahead. He scares me a little bit. Okay? Just a little bit. So Todd Gurley's currently sitting, sorry, I got to scroll back and forth here. As as running back number 9. That's not right. I'm going to make this easier. Number 7, running back number 7 at second round pick, 5th pick. Dalvin Cook, number 8, 2.7. Dalvin Cook is, so again, these guys, their offensive line, so the 23rd rated offensive line, right? I agree with that as well, Kevin. That's a very good point. So Kevin's saying I like Gurley first half and then trade. So he has had trouble staying healthy. I don't know. I mean, it depends on what you can get for him, right? So, that's it's a good strategy. That's how I want to board that, right? But that could work out for the person you traded to as well, because he might have his breakout year this year. That's my only point. I know we say it every year. So Dalvin Cook. Dalvin Cook, guys, I think is due for his career year. Okay. Again, his offensive line, the average of it is a 23, right? So Kyle, since I got you in here, the Minnesota offensive line ranks out at 26th in Yahoo, not good. 21st in Fan Pros, and 22nd in Sporting News. So the good thing, though, the good thing of all of this is the change in philosophy, like we were talking about today, right? So they brought in a new offensive coordinator. And forgive me, I'm trying to get to this real quick. I got too much stuff. They brought in a new offensive coordinator, and there it is. Kevin Stefanski. So John DeFilippi last year was replaced in Week 15. Stefanski likes to run, right? The last 4 games, he finished averaging 26 points. So there was a bit of a change of philosophy there, right? The thing about Stefanski is he kind of shifted from Thielen to Diggs, and he's like to include Kyle Rudolph a lot more. He runs that one-cut block scheme, which Dalvin Cook ran at Florida State. I think all signs point to, if this kid can stay healthy, him being the most improved player in the league this year. I really do believe that, okay? So, again, 23rd ranked offensive line doesn't concern me because there's a lot of positives going on around him, right? So you got a new scheme, which he's familiar with and like. You got an offensive philosophy now, rather than just throw the ball to Adam Thielen 30 times a game, right? So, absolutely, health is the key. But I think it's sort of an anomaly with him. He was healthy for the most part at Florida State. I realize it's not apples to apples per se, but I do think he's primed for a career year this year, guys. Again, these are the guys you really want to focus on when you're drafting, because this is where you win. If you can get one of these guys as your RB2, you're in the money. You're in the money, okay? I'm talking Cook. I'm talking Gurley. I'm talking Zeke Elliott. Okay? I'm talking Nick Chubb. So, Nick Chubb, guys, is one of those guys, 2nd round pick, 9th pick of the 2nd round on average, okay? He's another guy that I cannot believe this is actually... Am I looking at this backwards? Because these guys should be raising. No. Yes. Nick Chubb is actually raised 2.7. I apologize. So he went from 2.9 on 8.13. Today he's 2.7. So he's raised 2 points. This guy's gaining traction. Again, offensive line, not great, right? Oh, Barkley's first overall, Kyle. First overall, and it's not close. And again, oh, you're answering Lenny. Awesome. Sorry, I'll let you guys go. Anyway, so I really do like Nick Chubb because of Baker Mayfield. I'm not saying that Nick Chubb isn't a good player, right? Now you got Lenny, you're killing me. You got me wanting to answer Lenny's trivia on my own damn podcast. Love you, Len. Anyway, so Cleveland's offensive line isn't great, okay? They average out at number 22, the bottom third of the league. But again, they did it last year. And it's not a true representative sample either, right? Because you really got to think, after Freddie Kitchens took over last year, things changed. I think that's a mistake, Kevin. I think CMC is actually, again, third on my list. I have Kamara in front of him. That's just my take on it. I think that's a mistake. I think Barkley is clearly the number one. That's me. So anyway, back to Chubb. So, I got Chubb on my mind. See if I can get me straight here. So Chubb last year, although he started the year as a backup, still had 996 yards and 8 touchdowns. All indications are he's going to be a bigger part of the receiving game out of the backfield this year. And that'll be a big part of his development, right? Because that's what separates him from the people in front of him. You look at 1 through 7 on this list, 91 receptions, 107 receptions, 81 receptions, 85 receptions, 50, 55, 40. Then there's Nick Chubb, the number 7 running back with 20 receptions. Okay? Sorry, I left out Gurley in 59. So he needs to develop that part of his game to truly be in this same ilk, if you will, as these top 7 guys. But he's capable. The thing you really got to do with Nick Chubb, you got to handcuff him. You got to handcuff him with Kareem Hunt. It's a necessity because Kareem Hunt, we'll all remember, was a true, legitimate stud last year, and he'll be back in Week 10. And he'll be a big part of that offense come playoff time. So if you get Chubb, reach for, what's his face? I got all these names in front of me, guys. The Kansas City running back. Anyway, you know who I'm talking about. So that's my take on Chubb. I really do think that he has the ability to put up close to the same numbers as the top 7 guys. These guys in front of him. Okay, so let's talk about Melvin Gordon and Zeke Elliott and what the philosophy needs to be. Kevin, perfect timing. Yeah, Rodney Hampton. I remember him. So Melvin Gordon and Zeke Elliott. Melvin Gordon is actually free falling at this point. He's fallen 4 spots, and this high in the draft is pretty significant, right? Hey, you know what though? It's a good point, but it's worth it. It's worth it because you look what Kareem Hunt did last year. I got his name back. You look at what Kareem Hunt did last year, and he was, quite honestly, he was one of the top 5 backs in the league, production-wise, until all that crap came out with him, right? So I don't see why he isn't an immediate impact when he comes back. And I'm not saying Chubb's production goes away. I'm just saying it becomes a true split so that those guys will both be healthy for the playoff stretch, because this is a team that's gonna contend, okay? Anyway, let's talk about Gordon and let's talk about Zeke. Again, as I said earlier, there was news coming out this afternoon about the Jones family extending a contract to Zeke, making him the 2nd highest paid running back. So basically, the takeaway from that is the ball is in Zeke's court. I anticipate, because Jerry Jones is extending the olive branch, if you will. I would anticipate that Zeke Elliott doesn't stonewall when he's so close. I mean, but who knows? Last year was crazy. Last year was unprecedented. So until he signs on the dotted line, there is a risk there. He is currently get drafted at 1.5. Kevin said he got him at 6 and he was happy. I think if he signs, I would be happy as well, Kevin. But as it stands, I currently have both of these guys valued as an RB1. You clearly have to keep them in that discussion. But I have them at the end of RB1, okay? So when I'm looking at my team, I don't want to be stuck with Melvin Gordon or Zeke Elliott, because that means I have to spend valuable draft commodities drafting an Austin Eckler or Justin Jackson, or Tony Pollard with Zeke Elliott. You have to spend high picks to get those guys, right? So you have to handcuff really early with those guys, and it might all be not for naught, because when they come back, it's not like those guys are going to be viable if Melvin Gordon and Zeke Elliott more than Melvin Gordon, right? Eckler certainly showed his worth last year, as did Jackson. So it's a little bit different story, but still, you get my point. So your number 10 and your number 11 running backs are Melvin Gordon and Zeke Elliott. It's well documented. Both of those guys have upper echelon offensive lines. Dallas actually came as the number 2 offensive line, the second best overall. And I always want to call them San Diego. The LA Chargers are the 10th best offensive line. So it's important to take note, while these guys are falling, if you are of the belief that they will sign, there's some value there, right? There's some ability to get a guy. If you can get a guy like Zeke Elliott at the end of the first round, he signs, the production he puts up is going to be quite more, it's going to be in a positive direction, right? When you're looking at what he gives you at the end of the year. Okay. So there we are. We're at number 11. I don't know. Aaron Jones is currently going, again, guys, I have to take a pause here. This is my list. This is my draft list. Who does this shit? I'm crazy, right? I'm giving you my draft list. Okay? And I said it last week. I'll say it again. I think it's important to pause for emphasis. I do this because it changes so quickly that it's not going to matter come draft day, because my opinion on Aaron Jones today might be very different than it is a week and a half from now. Okay? So currently, Aaron Jones is going in the 3rd round with the 10th pick. I know it's a touch of a reach, okay? So if you're going by the industry standard, Arnie! Thanks for joining, brother. If you're going by the industry standard, Aaron Jones doesn't go until pick 15, running back wise. Okay? But I'm telling you guys, I have the cojones enough to tell you guys, he might be hurt by week 5. You're absolutely right. You're absolutely right, Arnie. But you know what? That guy, you look at the year he had last year, 728 yards and 8 TDs. He didn't get a full-time role until halfway through the season, right? You're talking about the 10th best offensive line and a coordinator coming in that wants to run the ball. That's the key. You have to look at, again, is it Matt Patricia? I hate to leave my notes because it slows me down, right? Is it Arnie? Tell me, is it Matt Patricia? Is that what it is? Who's the Matt LaFleur? Peter LaFleur's brother. Okay, Matt LaFleur loves to run the football. Okay, so if he comes in and could be effective, can catch the ball and do some damage that way, which he's proven he could do. Okay, 206 yards last year and a touchdown through the air. He's a value. And again, when I make this, I love it when Arnie's in the chat room. Yeah, I know, it's LaFleur, okay? Sometimes it takes me a second, especially when I get thrown off. But I get there, okay? So, again, I'm not saying Aaron Jones should be the 12th person you industry standard has Joe Mixon as RB10, and Damian Williams as RB12, or excuse me, 11 and 12. So I'm just taking out Joe Mixon, and I'm putting Damian Williams down one spot, and I'm saying Aaron Jones has a higher value than those two guys, in my opinion. Okay? that's what, so when you're looking at a guy like Aaron Jones, and again, this is my frick list. This is my list. When you're looking at a guy like Aaron Jones and you value him, and you're sitting there in the third round, and you're looking at Joe Mixon at the end of the third round who's fallen, and you're looking at Damian Williams who's fallen, but you like Aaron Jones better. Right? That's my whole thing. And I know you know this, Arnie. I know you know this. That's why I overemphasize making your own freaking list, right? Make your own list, because you can take chances on Aaron Jones if you truly value him over Joe Mixon. When the draft's going on, right? When the draft's going on, you're not going to think, oh, I value Aaron Jones a little bit more than Joe Mixon. No, you're going to be freaking thinking of a million different things. If you got the list in front of you, you'll say, oh shit, I like Aaron Jones. It makes it easier, right? And you don't have to reach for guys. You can still get them at value at the proper position. So there's my RB1s. Those are the 12 guys I value as an RB1. Okay? Barkley, McCaffrey, Kamara, Bell, Dave Johnson, Connor, Gurley, Cook, Chubb, Mel Gordon, Zeke Elliott, and Aaron Jones. There's 12 of them. Let's talk about the next 12, because here's where it gets interesting. Hold on a second.
I got a lot of problems with you people. Now, you're going to hear about it.
All right, here we go. RB2s. This is where you really make a team, right? Yeah, you're absolutely right, Arnie. If he plays all season, he is a top 7 running back. So, anyway, this is where you win your championships. These next 12 guys, and again, I'm going to beat the hell out of this drum, okay? Because it's important. It's important to know who you value more than someone else as an RB2. And people are freaking lazy. Okay? People are lazy, and they don't do this. This is important. RB2, number 1, David Montgomery. Am I blowing your mind, Arnie? Am I blowing your mind? It's a reach. I know it's a reach. This is my value of these guys. David Montgomery. Report came out today, Arnie, Lenny, Andrea, whoever the hell else is crazy enough to listen to me. Report came out today that they believe they used Tariq Cohen too much down the stretch last year. Chicago Bears football is running the frickin' ball. Okay? It is ground and pound football. I saw this guy up close and personal last year. I saw him, his first game back, beat an undefeated Mountaineer team and break my fucking heart. Okay? David Craig, welcome. So, what I'm trying to tell you is, and I know everybody always says this Big 12 defenses, I don't give a. I don't care. I'm talking about, I watched this guy with mine own 2 eyes. He is a Bears running back. He is physical. He likes to run up in between the tackles, and he gets stronger as the game goes on. He is currently being picked at 4.9. Guys, that's a steal. Okay? He is worth that. It's not a question. We're talking about RB2s. Who's the number 13 running back on the board? Okay? And there's a lot of freaking talent out there. I'm telling you, David Montgomery, I value more than any of these other folks. Okay? How about Damian Williams? Guys? Here's the thing. Andrea asked me the other day. she said, what do you think about Damian Williams? Is he a boom or a bust? And my answer was pretty middle of the road. I'll go in depth now, Andrea. Early in the year, I think Damian Williams is going to be really, really good. Okay? It's like Kevin was talking about earlier. Draft him and trade him. Damian Williams is one of those guys who really impressed last year. 4 touchdowns, only 256 yards, but he didn't play that much, and 160 yards receiving, right? And you know what? You're absolutely right, Vic. You're absolutely right. But here's my whole point, okay? Here's my whole point. And I know you know this. Thanks for coming, by the way, Vic. Kansas City's offense is fucking lethal. It's lethal, okay? And the thing about it is, he's going to be, they say guilt by association. He's going to be innocent by association. He's going to score touchdowns just by being in the right place, okay? But the thing about it is, the thing that's most important to understand about this, and I hate that you're in here, Vic. I know you know this, though, right? Darwin Thompson so news comes out today that he's jumped Carlos Hyde as the number 2 in that offense. As the season goes on, Darwin Thompson is going to be more and more viable in this offense. So, again, like I told you, Andrea, Damian Williams is one of those guys you want to have early, but as soon as some Yahoo comes, hey, what Damian Williams? Trade his ass quickly. Darwin Thompson will probably get drafted in most drafts. It's whether or not people were patient enough to hold on to him. You might, and obviously, output early on in the year, right? If he comes out and he's gangbusters, he's not going to get dropped, obviously. But anyway, so David Montgomery, Damian Williams, 3.4. No, you're absolutely right. Reed does love those guys. I mean, and Reed with running backs is masterful, right? So Westbrook Jr. He's really talented. He's really talented, and he fits well into that offense. That's my whole point, right? So Montgomery, Williams, RB1, RB2 in the second tier. Number 3, Mark Ingram. And it's funny because Mark Ingram is the first example we see of a guy rising more than a couple points. Okay? So Mark Ingram, 1 week ago today, actually yesterday, he was sitting in the 4th round with the 12th pick. Today, 4th round, 7th pick. Okay? So it's interesting what's going on here with Ingram. Well, he's certainly in a good situation. I think that, with him and Lamar Jackson, I think that the holes will be wide open for him. I think you talk about bringing in offensive coordinator. I hate going back and forth, but I have it written down. I studied it, so I want to share it with you guys. Offensive coordinator Greg Roman. It's important to make note, he helped develop Tyrod Taylor in Buffalo. He helped develop Colin Kaepernick in San Francisco. He is a run-heavy offensive coordinator. So keep that in mind when you're looking at a guy like Mark Ingram. I think he has a value, okay? And I have him as my 3rd RB2. Chris Carson is another guy I love. And Vic, I know you're laughing at this because I traded away in our keeper league. I traded both of those guys away. It's one of those things where I do truly value, and honestly, if I was thinking a little bit more about it, I probably would have kept those guys because they're lower draft pick value, right? But anyway, side story. Chris Carson is another one of those guys. He is racing up the boards. He's moved up 7 spots to 5.3. Penny is losing ground on Carson as the lead back. I really do believe that he will improve from his 1,151 yards from last year, his 9 TDs, and his 20 receptions. I do believe that he will be utilized more in the passing game. It was worth it. I mean, anyway, yeah, you got to get the draft picks where you can, right? That's how I feel about it. So anyway, Chris Carson, again, we're running short on time, so I'm going to start speeding through these guys. There's no one on after me, so I'm going to try and get through 3 tiers. So I'm going to start moving quickly, okay? After I take a drink of my whiskey. Tonight, Rhodes Creek. It's funny, I saw my wife right before I came on. I really enjoy the Rose Creek. I had the Four Roses Tuesday night for my baseball show, and it's good. I love Four Roses. I've had, but by the way, fact check, right? Fake news, true news. Four Roses is made in Kentucky. It is a Kentucky whiskey. There was some discussion. Someone said it was made in Japan or some crazy shit like that. It's made in Kentucky. Rose Creek is delicious, guys. I mean, when I poured it tonight after having. No, George, you got to try. This stuff. It's unbelievable. Okay, I mean, you could drink it straight, no aftertaste. It's really good. Yeah, you're absolutely right, Vic. I love it. But after having that on Tuesday and then having this tonight, it's Rowan's Creek. Okay, if you scroll up, I took a picture of it before the show. So let's move through these guys real quickly. Okay, so. After Chris Carson, again, it's funny when you break these guys down into tiers, right? Okay, Vic, owned by a Japanese company. Fair enough. Vic knows this shit. I know you do. So let's talk football again. I love my whiskey. I'll bring it in on occasion. George, welcome, by the way. George says he's so old he used to drink 2 roses. George and the Zingers love it. Anyway, Kerryon Johnson. Kerryon Johnson's one of those guys I put behind these guys, but I really do think he's a value. He's currently going in the middle, round 3, pick 5. Okay, let me see if that's a gain or. Okay, dead air, right? No, so anyway, Kerryon Johnson is one of those guys that the change in philosophy in Detroit, they are going to be run heavy this year. They did pick up C.J. Anderson, but I do believe that this is the kid, this is the guy that they really want to feed off of. He is going to be the primary back. Their offensive line ranked out at 19th overall, but he was able to, with that line, he was able to accumulate 641 yards and 3 touchdowns. He was injured last year, so I look for him to have a good year. I do think at the middle of RB2 category, again, you're going to have to spend a little bit higher on him. But at 3.5, I think that he is a value and could be a breakout candidate. Joe Mixon I have. Vic, next. 2.8 is where he's going. That's actually fallen. Excuse me. 2.9 is where he's going. It's fallen from 2.8 earlier. So it's he's one of those guys I kind of having second thoughts on. Version 3 might have Joe Mixon going up because I like what I've been reading about the hires. Zach Taylor, I think it is. You have to help me because I don't have that in front of me. But this is the guy that showed Todd Gurley how to catch the ball. So if he could do that with Mixon certainly has the talent. He could be a sleeper. And at the middle of RB2 territory, he is a high price, which is why I have him so low. But, I mean, it all depends. Being a Steeler fan, it's not terribly hard for me to not like Mixon, right? But, anyway. So, next, this is the guy that I really feel like isn't getting enough. Yeah, no, it was a good move. I was hoping DJ would follow me, Vic. Dave Johnson. When I saw that you weren't going to keep him, I was just biting my tongue like. And Todd Gurley was skipped too, right? Anyway, again, another side story. So yeah, David Johnson's the right pick. Joe Mixon's a good value. How about Devonta Freeman? We talked earlier about how Atlanta spent 2 first-round picks on an offensive lineman, right? Initially, that makes you think Devonta Freeman, and I still do to an extent. I tend to think with Dirk Cutter, I tend to think it's more of a Matt Ryan thing. Okay, Devonta Freeman's health scares me, but that being said, he is raising. He is up 3 points to 4.4. So 4th round pick for Devonta Freeman. I would take that risk. I think there's value to be had with Devonta Freeman in the 4th round. So again, when you get to this point, it's really important to have so again, as a 4.7, if you have him as your 19th running back, right? That sounds like a lot of running backs, but you could maybe overlook a guy like Marlon Mack, who's going at 311, or someone of that nature, right? I'm struggling to find a good example right now. So, how about Leonard Fournette, who's next, right? So look at what I'm doing here, guys. Okay, I'll take a step back. Look at what I'm doing. Potential at the top of my RB2, right? So you talk about David Montgomery, you talk about Mark Ingram, you talk about Chris Carson, you talk about Kerryon Johnson, I forgot Damian Williams, you talk about Devonta Freeman. All those guys have the potential to be RB1s. All 6 of them, right? So then, I'm going to, Lenny. I'm going to take my time because I got a shitload of these guys, okay? I'm not through the second tier. My wife will freaking divorce me if I go. Oh, I'm going to go over. Anyway, I'm going to give you an extra 20 minutes, okay? So I got a lot of shit to talk about. I've spent a lot of time doing this. And the funny thing about this is, guys, I do this because I love it. I just have the opportunity to share it with you tonight. Okay, because of Lenny Melnick. Thank you, Lenny. I appreciate it, sir. I remember being a wee tot and my dad making out these lists about who's gonna, who he thought was gonna have the potential on the baseball team, who's gonna have a first base and second base and third base, right? And I remember just like seeing that as a kid, not thinking much about it, but just seeing it, right? But now, like, all these years later, I wonder, why the fuck do I love making these lists, right? Well, then it clicked. Well, Dad used to Dad used to do this all the time, right? And it was about this stuff, right? He was making his defenses. He was making his batting card, right? So it makes sense that this works for me, right? So let's carry on. I do want to get fast because I don't want to spend all night with this. Again, I want to stay married. Leonard Fournette next. He's currently going in the 3rd round with the 4th pick. He actually, he's moved up 3 spots from 1 week ago. He's going 3.1. First pick of the 3rd round at this point. He is trending in a positive direction, and that's because of a number of different things, right? One, you have to think that he's healthy, right? 2, all reports are that he's really done a good job at catching the football, it's just such a big part of their offensive philosophy, the running back position. So I really do think in the 3rd round, Leonard Fournette, although I have him a little bit lower, I have him below some of these guys, has the potential to return good value. Okay, so 3.1 is where he's currently going. Again, he's another one of those guys. I lump him into the category with the first, 7 guys in this category. He has the potential to be an RB1, right? So that's what we're looking for when we're drafting these guys. We're looking for guys that have the potential to move upward. Leonard Fournette has certainly showed that. Sony Michel, and in all honesty, this guy freaking concerns me. Currently, 5th round, 4th pick. I want to make sure I got this right. No, he's moved up 5 spots. 4th round, 12th pick. Sony Michel's moved up 5 spots. That's a significant move, guys. That's the same movement that Mark Ingram's getting. That's important to take note. The thing that cautions me, why I have him below these other guys, Sony Michel is running currently with bone on bone in his knees. He's still young, so he can still be quite viable. But it worries me, the life cycle of these players that already have pre-existing conditions, right? Just like you go to the doctor and you tell the doctor you have a history of heart condition, you're less likely to get insured. I bump this guy down because of this, right? So, again, he's still an RB2. He's still got a ton of talent. Talent alone, he deserves to be higher on this list, right? But the risk of injury, to me, is concerning enough to move him down to the bottom. Just like I did with Melvin Gordon and Zeke Elliott in RB1 territory. I'm doing the same with these guys that present current risks. Arnie, I'm getting to the silver and black. Okay? If you're still with me. I just rate these guys a little bit lower. Okay? The next guy, Marlon Mack, is currently getting drafted at the end of the 3rd round. This is a guy who, if Andrew Luck plays, I think they have a competent offensive system. First off, sidebar, I know most of you know this in the chat room, I'm in Indianapolis. I'm a Steeler fan in Indianapolis. I hear all their bullshit, right? I think they're off. I like Chris Ballard. I like Frank Reich. I think these guys are much better than the joke show that was before them. I gotta fucking sorry, getting dry there, guys. It concerns me, though, that if Andrew Luck's not there, they completely forget that Marlon Mack's a part of the game plan. Okay? That's my concern with Marlon Mack. Because 908 yards, 9 touchdowns is really a solid RB2. Okay? But I have to downgrade him because of this. Because of the fact that you don't know what's going on with Andrew Luck. And I saw what happened 2 years ago. Okay? I'm afraid it's going to happen again. Because if Andrew Luck has an Achilles, that throws a big monkey fuck into everything Indianapolis is doing. Okay? Got sidetracked. Let's talk about Josh Jacobs. Josh Jacobs is one of those guys. And Arnie, if you're still with me, brother, I have Josh Jacobs rated lower because I just worry about the circus. I worry about the circus, and I worry about the fact that Jalen Richard is still there. Okay? So that's why I put him lower on this list than maybe you would have expected, Arnie. I still value him. I still think that he has a ton of talent, right? If I'm in a dynasty league, I might put a little bit more value into him. But there are some guys, Arnie, I'm going to give you here in a little bit that I like better and you can get for a better deal. Okay. I have 65 running backs here. 65. Josh Jacobs is the only one I'll have an ADP on. He's currently going at the end of the third round. Okay? So again, when we're talking about making these lists, I'm coming from the perspective of I've got my guide on the right. I've got the industry, my football diehards on the right, Arnie? I got my football diehards on the right. Then I have my own independent thought, and I put it on the left. I write their names beside it. I write their average draft position. I do that because when I'm drafting, it enables me to think about what I'm doing, right? So if I have a guy like Josh Jacobs, and I really am itching I want him, right? I know he's an end of the third round guy. I might have him higher than. Did I tell you 92? Yeah. I didn't tell you 92, David. Anyway, I have 60, like I said, I have 60, 65, 66. But anyway, we won't go through all of them today. Not enough time. Trying to stay married. So anyway, Josh Jacobs I like. There are some rookie running backs that I like better than him. We'll get to. Okay. How about Derrick Henry? My last RB2, Derrick Henry. 4th round pick. So again, to put a bow on all of this, overview draft philosophy. Derrick Henry, my last RB2, is a 4th round pick, 5th pick. Okay? In a 12th round setting. So it's important to take note, if you don't get your top 2 running backs and your first 2 or 3 picks, you're gonna be scraping the bottom of the barrel. Okay? These guys are going quick. You need to make it a focus. Now, it's interesting because when you do it this way, we've got all your RB2s. I've given you 24 running backs, right? 24 guys who I'm building my team around. The next tier, we're totally pivoting. Thank you, Kyle. We're totally pivoting. We're talking about serviceability. We're talking about guys, one, that we know are going to get plenty of opportunity. 2, maybe they're not the flashiest, the shiniest, or maybe they got a wart on their thumb, right? But the end result is these guys can help you build depth, okay? You're going to win in fantasy football by building good, solid depth. That's why I'm making this argument. This is the most important tier. The most important tier is this tier right here. And I want your independent thoughts because I can give you mine. This shit's going to change in a week. Okay? I'll give you a perfect example. Tevin Coleman, I have as my second RB3. He's going in the 8th round with the first pick. Excuse me, let me make sure that's right. No, he's moved up 5 spots to 7.6. He's moving forward for a reason, guys. Arnie, thanks for stopping by, brother. Appreciate you. My main man, Arnie. We do Tuesday nights at 9. Check him out. Arnie's great. So, Lamar Miller, my first RB3. And I love Lamar Miller. So, he's moved up 7 spots since last week. Okay? Yeah, it does change daily. But you know what? Here's the thing, Vic. You got to put it on paper so you can. I'm tracking where these guys' ADPs are going because I'm a nerd enough to write this shit down when I prepare for these shows. Which, kudos to me for being a nerd. Kudos to you guys for being a nerd and listening to me. But here's the thing. We're in make or break territory here, right? So Lamar Miller, you look at what he's done Sorry, I had to take a drink of whiskey. I'm going overtime, guys, so you got to deal with me. There he is. Last year, his offensive line stuck. He had the 28th best offensive line, right? But 973 yards and 5 touchdowns. I mean, it's not great. But again, we're talking about depth here, okay? We're talking about depth. This is a guy, if you could put him at RB3 or use him as your flex guy, he has significant upside because they've got 3 really good wide receivers in that offense now. They've got the second best quarterback in the game playing for them, okay? And they brought in Duke Johnson to take some of that pressure off of him. So what's not to like about Lamar Miller? That's why I have him. Although, full transparency, after some of the shit I heard about Tevin Coleman tonight, I would flip them. I made this list yesterday, guys. This is a one-day-old list I'm giving you guys, okay? So that's how fresh it is. Tevin Coleman is currently going, he's another one. He's moved up 5 spots, okay? 5 spots. He was at 8.1. He's now at 7.6. And think about this. Think about this, guys. No, you know it's on Google Doc, David. I got so many. I've really had to get in the name of my Google Docs because I get in there and there's all my shows are in there and I'm like, wait, which one is this? And then I start opening them and I can't figure out one. So I really have detailed titles to my Google Docs because there's so many of them. So back on point. Tevin Coleman. You think about Tevin Coleman, okay? Where'd Shanahan come from? Atlanta. Shanahan brought Tevin Coleman over from Atlanta for the sole purpose, where he was the most successful he's ever been, by the way, okay? With the sole intent of him being the focal point of that offense, okay? So Tevin Coleman, currently going at 7.6, is going to continue to move up. And this guy's humble opinion, you know I'm not humble. This guy's humble opinion, 7.6, I think he's better than that, is my point, okay? So I have him, again, full transparency, as my RB3 number 1. Him and Lamar Miller are neck and neck. I have Lamar Miller on this list ahead of him. I'm moving Tevin Coleman up a spot because of what I heard today. You think, I mean, and that's the funny thing, you do research for these shows and you just don't, until someone puts it in your ear, you're like, oh shit, that's right. I always get it back. Mike Shanahan was in Atlanta. And Tevin Coleman did do well for him. And then he brought him over there, right? So anyway, 7.6 for Tevin Coleman. He's important. How about Tariq Cohen? He's one of those guys. He's still raising up the board. But I would make the argument he's falling in my ratings. Okay? So he's currently going up pick 511. That's up from a 6.2 last week, okay? But fact of the matter is, the Bears published today an article about how they are smitten with Montgomery, about how they overworked Cohen last year. I'm not saying that Cohen's not going to be valuable, right? But what I am saying is, pump the brakes. Let's see where he's at, okay? So currently, at the end of the 5th round, you could do better than that. I'm going to give you some guys you could do better with. Right after James White, though. James White is one of those guys. He has a defined role, right? Currently, he's going. I can't find him on my list, guys. There he is. At 5.3. Okay, so he's moved up 4 spots in a week. He's trending forward. I think that he is what he is. He's never going to be the first and second down back. But he is clearly the third down back. Okay? So, that said, that's why I have him in the middle of this third tier. Okay? If you get... Let me get to it here. Hopefully I have it. If you have 751 receiving yards again and 87 catches with 7 TDs out of James White, you've got to be happy with your production. He was targeted 123 times last year. Okay? That's important to take note of. So yes. So yes, he is an important part of the offense. He's not the key part of the offense. That's the thing, right? And that's okay sometimes. But it's important to take note when these guys... Sorry guys, I'm having a technology moment. It keeps erasing all my shit. So I'll move on. James White, 5.3, okay? How about, here's where we start, okay? David Craig, I'm talking to you. My next guy, Austin Eckler, has to keep moving up this board. He's moved up 12 spots in the past week. Dave, I'm getting to that. And that's a great question. Yeah. Again, Pollard's one of those guys, and again, I want to get to that, right? Later than Eckler. He's not in the third tier, okay? But I will answer your question. So, Austin Eckler's moved up 12 spots in the last week. Melvin Gordon anticipates missing some of the season now. It is important to take note of this. David, I will be drafting Austin Eckler earlier. Where the frick is he? I just had him. Then the 8.5 moniker, I would go at least a round earlier, given that you're keeping Gordon. Okay? That's just my take. 8.5 is where he's going right now. That's high draft capital for a guy who could be a backup in 3 weeks, right? But you got to do it. If you kept Gordon, you have to go out there. Now, you're right not to draft for him or trade for him rather. You're absolutely right for doing that. But you need to kind of reach a little bit for Eckler and this guy. Actually, I like Justin Jackson. That's my take. So Pollard, I like as a fourth tier guy. I have him, in the same discussion with the high upsides, the Devin Singletaries, the Justice Hills, the Darwin Thompsons, right? Justice Hills we'll get to him, right? So anyway, Miles Sanders. How about Miles Sanders, guys? He's one of those guys. We're not sure we're getting. He's actually fallen one point, but you gotta like his potential and the fact of what he can bring as a rookie. So I have him currently sitting at 9-1 in the middle of my third tier. The whole C.J. Anderson thing is interesting with him. I think that's right? These guys that moved. No. Who's in Philly? Shit. I know this. Jordan Howard. Him and Jordan Howard. I think there's enough room for both of them, right? That's my whole point. I think there's... And actually, Jordan Howard's my next guy. Duh. So I have Miles Sanders one spot ahead of Jordan Howard. Miles Sanders is currently going, like I said, at 9.2. Jordan Howard, however, is going at 7.7. Okay? So I guess my points are ranking it like this. You're in the third tier. You're talking about backing up. Miles Sanders has a carved out role, right? He's going to be a third down back. He's going to be there. Regardless, he could get more. So strictly upside alone, I like Miles Sanders more than Jordan Howard. Okay? Here's the next guy. And this is the guy I talked about earlier. Kareem Hunt. Kareem Hunt, don't forget, especially if you're in a keeper league, Kareem Hunt in the third tier is a value at 9.8. Ninth round, 8th pick. That is a value, okay? He is going to be back in week 10. He is going to come back and be pissed off. I really do believe. I love Nick Chubb. Nick Chubb is a hell of a talented running back. But the fact that the Kareem Hunt is going to contend for carries, undoubtedly, is an issue for Nick Chubb, okay? Adrian Peterson. So again, we're talking about high value. Adrian Peterson currently, at this point in the list, is a humongous value, right? Currently, he's moved up a full round. He's moved up 10 picks, but he's still an 11th round, at the end of the 11th round pick. He's going 11.12. Guys, I don't know if y'all checked this or not. Darius Geis, yeah, he's playing this week. He's not 100% yet. That's a concern. Adrian Peterson could be the bell cow for, granted, a shitty team. I'll take that as my third back, maybe my fourth back, right? Because we're stockpiling these guys. I told you guys I was going to give you 20 minutes. I'm going to run down through this list, David, because I know you want to hear about it. I'm not going to give much information behind it. If y'all got questions, I'd be happy to answer them later on, okay? After Adrian Peterson, we got 3 more guys in the third tier of running backs. I got Royce Freeman next. He's an 11-1. Up. Actually, he's fallen 5 picks. Jordan Howard. Jordan Howard is after that. No, I have duplicates of Jordan Howard. Peyton Barber is after that. So, again, 12.6 from up to a 12.3. He is raising. You have to think he is going to be a big part of that offense in Tampa. Darwin Thompson, guys. Again, I because of timing, I'm not going to talk a whole lot about him, but Vic nailed it on the head. He's Westbrook 2.0. This is just what Andy Reid wants. So this is a guy, currently, if you really want him, you're probably going to have to reach for him. But currently, Jesus, he's gone up 10 picks. He's currently sitting 13.9, okay? Up from 14.7, but it's still a value. Here's a guy that people aren't talking about. Justice Hill. Justice Hill, again, us Mountaineer fans, we know, we saw him last year. He's a good freaking running back, right? He is one of those guys that, yes, he's going to be a good receiver, but he's big and he's physical and he fits right in to what Baltimore wants to do. Don't be surprised if Justice Hill takes over a big part of that offense in Baltimore. Again, I hate talking to you motherfuckers because I know you're in my league, but I'm being totally transparent here, guys. Okay, 13.4 actually fell down to a 13.6. You guys will laugh at me. My next, Phil Lindsay. Phil Lindsay's a value. He's just being overdrafted at 5.4. There's no way in hell I'll ever get Phil Lindsay. Okay, but I'll tell you who got a chance of getting Devin Singletary. How about Devin Singletary with a possibility of being a lead back in Buffalo and an improved offense, okay? He's moved up 21 spots. 21 spots. Now, you're absolutely right. He's that one cut back, right, Vic? He does a nice job of kind of stringing the defense along and then hitting that hole hard. Justice Hill's a hell of a running back. Devin Singletary at 10-10 could be a steal, okay? Again, I said I'm going to move fast. I'm not moving fast. Deion Lewis, 13-2. Alexander Madison, I love this kid. He is a clear handcuff, just as I said with you, David, and Austin Eckler, or Justin Jackson, or Johnson, or whatever the hell his name is. I feel the same way about Alexander. Yes, sir, I do. We'll talk tomorrow. Kyle, who's up? Yes, I'll join your league. Alexander Madison, I love. This is a guy who, again, Minnesota is smitten over. He is a really talented player. Rashad Penny is falling, okay? 7th round, 12th pick. He will be lower than that come draft day. They love Chris Carson. There are other options in Seattle. Don't draft Rashad Penny. Jalen Samuels, you guys might think I have him a little low. Okay? I like Jalen Samuels. I also like Benny Snell. Benny Snell is a Steeler running back. Jalen Samuels is a good player. But Benny Snell is a Steeler running back. David. Tony Pollard. 13.4. I have him in tier 4. And I have him this low I have him this low, Dave, because I do believe Zeke signs. Again, I'm concerned about Gordon. I do think Zeke signs. Okay? If Zeke doesn't sign, he goes up well into tier 3. Immediately. No hesitation. The kid's good. Okay? But I just think Zeke is the type of player that you just don't get much production from the backup when Zeke's in the ballgame. Okay? Nyheim Hines, again, here in Indy, Hines is a good ball player. He actually is falling. That's crazy. He's fallen 15 spots, guys, in the last week. Sorry, just being transparent. I don't know if there's an injury thing going on there or not, but that's concerning. He's down to a 12th round, 4th pick. Damian Harris. Damian Harris is a sleeper, guys. I really do think that if Sonny Michel gets hurt, Damian Harris could have a really good year. Okay? And then lastly, in my 4th tier is Justin Jackson. I love Justin Jackson. They're saying that he looks every bit as good as Eckler early on in this season. So it'll be interesting what happens there. Okay. It's 8:25. I gotta eat. My stomach's grumbling. I've had 2 glasses of whiskey. I love doing this though. I've got, like I said, I got about 15 more. Dave, if you really, really want them, I'll be happy to give them to you. But for now, I'm going to go ahead and sign off. Guys, thanks for joining along. I love having all you guys in here with me. Kyle, Vic, David, Lenny was in here earlier. Andrew was in here. Arnie, my buddy, was in here earlier. Just really cool. George, just having everybody in here and just kind of shooting shit about this stuff, right? But Thursday nights are for football. I am going to, as the season starts, I'm going to talk some college football. I'm going to plan on using this show for 30 minutes NFL, 30 minutes college football. I'm going to start doing an 11 o'clock Sunday morning show, sit starts. So just kind of giving you guys what's on the horizon. I really love having my friends in here. So thank you guys for supporting me. Chaps on Thursday nights football. Next week, we're going to talk about wide receiver. You think this is wide open. Shit, man. There's so many wide receivers. But you know what? I got all these ADPs too, man. So I'm excited to share that with you. Who's trending? I think it's really important because when you're making your lists, it's important to I'm going to, Dave. First 30 minutes NFL and then the second half college football. It'll be more of an overview, right? The college football, the top 25 stuff. But anyway, next week's going to be pretty damn loaded. I anticipate going over as well next week. So if you guys interested at all in baseball, Tuesday nights at 7, I do a show on baseball. So again, Chaps Fantasy Chat, Tuesdays and Thursdays on the Lenny Melnick Fantasy Sports Network, brought to you by Speaker. Thank you guys. I'll see you guys soon. Thanks. Good night.